Good evening. It's really heavy. Good evening and welcome to the Central Area Planning Committee meeting at Maldon District Council on Thursday the 29th of June 2020. I am Councillor Carly Mays and I'm Chairman of this committee. This meeting will be streamed live and recorded, and by being present in the meeting you are giving consent to being recorded. Members and officers, during each item, please indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. I encourage members to keep their contributions clear and concise. When invited to speak, remain seated and speak clearly. When speaking, refer to agenda papers. Please ensure you reference a page or paragraph number where appropriate. Item 2, apologies for absence. Do we have any, Tara? I think so. I think we have got a full house. Excellent. Thank you. Item 3, we move to recommend that the minutes of the meeting of the Central Area Committee held on the 16th of March are approved as a true and accurate record. These are presented for accuracy only. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Shaughnessy. Are there any matters arising, or can this be agreed by assent? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded that they are required to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests which they know they may have in items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8 inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. They are reminded that they will need to repeat their declaration at the appropriate point in the meeting and leave the room if required under the Code of Conduct. Any unforeseen interests may be declared similarly at the appropriate time. Are there any disclosables or non-disclosable? No? Thank you. Oh, swiftly. Right, we now move on to item 5, application 21-00540 OUT, the land at Blackwater Trading Estate, the Causeway, Maldon North Ward, on pages 11 to 40. The proposal is for outline planning permission, excluding landscaping and appearance. Excuse me. We are only looking at access, layout and scale for the erection of warehouse units Class B with associated vehicle parking and servicing. This has come to committee for determination as a major application. The recommendation is to approve, subject to the applicant entering into a legal agreement pursuant to section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 as amended to secure the planning obligations and subject to conditions as detailed in section 8. The officer presenting our report this evening is Anna Tashloglu. Anna.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So the application site forms part of Blackwater Trading Estate and it is located at the easternmost part of the estate south of Bates Road. The site covers an area of approximately 2.1 hectares and currently comprises hard standing which appear to be largely used as open storage area. Outline planning permission which, as stated already, with matters of appearance and landscaping reserved for future consideration, is sought for the erection of just under 10,500 square meters floor area of B8 storage and distribution buildings with associated parking and turning areas. 2 temporary buildings partially occupying the site, these 2 here, are proposed to be demolished. As noted, it is noted that the proposed development has been amended during the process of the application to allow a 20-meter gap. You can only hardly see that here, from the existing flood defence along the southern boundary with Hayward's Creek. This has resulted in the reduction of the amount of floor space of approximately 1,000 square meters. Access to the site, maybe I'll use that plan, is again from an existing vehicular network of Causeway. Here, this is all one way into the site and one way out to the site. In terms of parking provision, it is stated that one car parking space will be provided per 150 square meters of floor space, including 5% of parking spaces designated for disabled people. Floor plans have been submitted and indicative elevations for the proposed units. These are the floor plans for Unit A, smaller units B to E, floor plans of Unit F and G. These are the existing street scene elevations. Again, these are indicative only, and this is what's proposed indicative. These are the floor plans and the elevations of the two buildings that are to be demolished. Some photographs of the site. This is the application site. As you can see, it's mainly hard surfaced with open storage. This is the access to the site. This is Brooks Brothers, Travellers, and Aldi. And this is the existing, should be pedestrian cycleway along the northeastern boundary of Aldi. This is northwest of the site, Haybridge Creek to the southeast, and this is view from the site towards the west, which is the exit actually of the site. So having taken all material planning considerations into account, it is considered that the proposed employment land, which falls within B8 use class, would be compliant with the stipulations of policies E1 and S5 of the LDP, as well as policy CA2 of the Maldon and Haybridge Central Area Master Plan. On this basis, and subject to the imposition of an appropriately worded Grampian condition to secure the provision of an off-site cycleway and footway connection, the principle of development is considered acceptable. The development is located within flood zone 3. However, this is a designated employment site where the positioning of this type of employment usage has been considered acceptable. Following revision of the layout and amount of development proposed, an objection is no longer raised by the Environment Agency in relation to flood risk and accessibility to the flood defences. The impact of the development on the highway network and safety is considered acceptable, and adequate off-street parking provision has been provided. A check-in and monitoring fee for the travel plan will be secured through a Section 106 agreement. The development, subject to the imposition of a condition restricting the operating hours, is considered having an acceptable impact onto residential amenity. As this is an outline application, as already been told, the details of appearance and landscaping of the development are to be dealt with under a future application. So in light of the above, it is considered that the proposed development, subject to conditions and developer contributions as set out on pages 31 to 37 of the agenda, is considered acceptable and in accordance with the development plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I open the floor, could you just explain what a Grampian condition is, please?
Of course. Yeah, through you, Chairman. So a Grampian condition is a condition that imposed for works that they are off-site, basically outside the application site, and they are works that are considered necessary to be completed before the erection of the development, and the development would not be considered acceptable without the completion of these works.
Thank you. Members, I open the floor. Councillor Nunn.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As you know, Chairman, this is in your ward and mine, so I'm grateful to you for allowing me to speak. As far as I'm concerned, this is an industrial development on an industrial site, and so I don't particularly have any major problems with it. There are just two issues that are going round in my head at the moment. The first is about flooding. And I hear what's being said about flood mitigation, but this is right on the edge of Haybridge Creek. As far as the site's concerned, it's the nearest to the river course. So I do remain concerned about flooding. Haybridge Creek has become, towards its end, something of a ditch, but originally it was a main channel, and it's still got the potential to be a main channel with climate change. The other thing that I'm pleased to see, however, in the report is on page 29 and on page 37 at 30 and 31, the archaeological conditions, although it's rather disappointing that the only periods that have been highlighted as potentially there on the site are Roman and 19th century. This was a public area during the 18th century, and it's, according to some, potentially the site of the Battle of Maldon as well. So I'm really pleased that the archaeological condition is placed. So my views are that I would be very supportive of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I come to Councillor Spenceley, can that condition be extended to include the 18th century?
Sorry, Chair. I was simply making the point that there's an archaeological condition which is really good, yep. But whoever has highlighted that condition, presumably the County Archaeological Section, have simply regurgitated the potential for Roman remains and 19th century. We won't know until the condition's completed, but I'd like to think that there's a wider context there than that. Thank you.
Through you, Chairman, this is normally the response that is received at this stage from Essex County Council, the historic consultant, is based on desk-based study is not, I mean, once the archaeological condition is being implemented and they've done all the excavations, then we would know whether there was anything further than that.
This is a sufficient condition to capture all of that?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spenceley.
Hello, thank you, Chair. So what I'm going to say now isn't really relevant to whether or not we decide to approve this, but it is, I think, a really important point to make, and it's regarding the Grampian condition. So I'd like to draw members' attention to section 5.1.8 of the officer's report, and around halfway down that section, it is noted that the development of the Blackwater Retail Park has realised necessity of an off-road connection for pedestrians and cyclists, and a pedestrian cycle path has been secured through approval of application, and the application number is given, along the northern boundary of Aldi. Now this is was the retail park application to explain. Whilst this path appears to be fenced off and made of materials that are not pedestrian or cyclist friendly, it is noticed that compliance of the development with the approved plans is secured through condition 5. It is noted that the council is aware of the breach of condition, and therefore it is in its power to take enforcement action should this be considered expedient. But I just wanted to make the point here that if we think about that for a moment in practical terms, if it isn't enforced, then we're actually, what we're asking for here is a path that won't be of very much use. So it's really to reiterate the point that I think that needs to be enforced. Councillor Edwards and myself did go down to the site today and look at the footpath and cycle route that you have in the picture, and it's completely unusable and fenced off in its current state. I draw attention to this for a couple of reasons. At section 5.1.9 of the report, the seriousness of this is apparent in making this point. First of all, the developer clearly isn't keen on putting this in place. That's the first point I want to make, and I'll explain why I'm making that in a moment. The second part says exactly why we've got the Grampian condition. The LPA therefore considers that the provision of a pedestrian and cycle link connecting the site with the existing cycle and pedestrian network, which would also provide easier access to public transport, is necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms. And sadly, I've only been, as you know, in office for a couple of months, and I've already come across another site, which Michael Johnson is aware of, where it's a housing site where a condition was in place that an access point should be put in place before the estate was built. And sadly, it wasn't properly done, and now it isn't enforceable and it isn't possible. So I'm not blaming any officers for that at all, because I know you've really been faced with a mountain of work, and you've had, there are very short staff numbers, and I appreciate all of that. But what I want to say is that I just wanted to make the point, in summary, it's absolutely crucial that the completion of this particular route under this Grampian condition is monitored and put in place, and that we enforce the previous pathway that also wasn't enforced. And I just think if we're serious about climate change and sustainable transport, it's absolutely essential. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come to you in just a moment.
Through you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, first of all, in relation to the Grampian condition, they wouldn't be able to carry out the works without implementing the footway cycleway first. So that would have to be done before any works start on site, even the demolition of the 2 temporary buildings. Also, we've been in discussion with Michael Johnson, who's leading on the enforcement team. There is an enforcement case, and I believe if this application, generally, but even more, if this application has been approved tonight, this will be looked at as a matter of urgency. Yeah.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a few questions, I'm afraid. We did indeed have a look at it today. The first thing is, apart from the footpath, the access by road is through the grounds of another company behind it. So if you drive along Brooks Brothers, you go in front of another company, which is on the left-hand side. And I don't know if you can see it on the... To access it, you have to go across the yard of a second company, which is behind Brooks Brothers. Have I got that correct? That was right, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. And to get onto where the location is, there's no access road, was what I'm trying to get at. And even on the other side, we can't access it either. We tried to access it, we couldn't. And I know there's a fence across some of it, and some of it's got storage on it, but the difficulty was the access for vehicles, and also the footpath, because we weren't sure where that was even going. At the end of the Aldi footpath, there's nothing there. That was the first point. The next point is, whilst we were standing on the Haybridge Creek side, right across is the development, I was trying to think the name. Battle Rise, right across. And we were standing on the creek, listening to the forklift trucks on the existing warehouses, and the noise going right across to the residents on the other side of the river was horrendous. And one of those factories, one of those warehouses, had a big sound barrier. When I say sound barrier, it must have been 20 foot tall to stop. There was a big high sound barrier to stop the noise from the warehouse going across to the houses. But in this plan, there's no sound barrier. And those warehouses are actually nearer the development than the ones where there is a sound barrier, if that makes sense. The other thing I noticed, I was just looking for electrical charge points, but I think...
Oh, they are in there.
I've just been going through it, trying to find them. But there are no solar panels. And solar panels for a warehouse flat roof would be ideal in terms of the climate change that's happening. So there's no solar panels, although there is electrical charging. And that was it, actually. Thank you.
Electrical charging points are actually a condition 14. And I'm not aware, because it's not contained within the LDP, we can't actually enforce solar panels at this point. Hopefully that will change in the future, which is really disappointing. But we can only appeal to the applicant to perhaps consider that very strongly. Yeah.
So, through you, Chairman, about access and footpath. First of all, access. Just to point out that whatever is within the blue line is owned by the same applicant. So although there is because I visited the site, there is a fence along here, this will have to be removed for the development to be implemented, because the access, which is through here, this is the entrance to the site, will go this way. Maybe you can see on this plan. This is the entrance and this is the way out. So all of the access will be within the applicant's ownership. All the in relation to the footpath, the existing footway cycleway, which is not made properly and is also fenced off, is along here. So what we are asking is a connection from this point to this point. So this is all tarmacked at the moment. Obviously, there's no footway or cycleway. That's why we are asking for it. So I think that's covered access and footpath. And in relation to the residential development battle rise, which I think it's the one here, there was an objection initially from environmental health because they wanted to operate 24 hours, 24/7. So they've accepted to reduce the hours from 7 till 11. Yeah.
Condition 16.
Exactly, and that was considered acceptable by the environmental health officer. There is quite a significant distance. Bates Road is here, if I'm correct. And no, you're right. There isn't a condition for an acoustic barrier to be installed. It has not been requested by the environmental health. This site was always supposed to be used for industrial purposes, and actually this part of the site is already used for industrial purposes, but as an open storage rather than one that is enclosed within the building. I mean, we as officers didn't see any particular reason for us to impose a condition for a barrier, an acoustic barrier, but if you think that's necessary and to make the development acceptable.
Can we condition for it? Is that condition, or does that have to go?
Do you wanna,
Michael?
That's right. No, I think it'd be very difficult when we're talking about something like a bund, a very substantial structure, normally subject to detailed analysis of noise and wind direction and that sort of stuff. Yeah. It couldn't be a matter that we could reasonably apply and defend at committee at this stage. If members wanted to go that route, I'd say you'd have to defer the application for further consideration and then discussion with the applicants. But I mean, it's such a significant matter.
Yes, of course. We'll go to Councillor Lagan.
But yeah, I understand what you're saying, but there are acoustic barriers already there. They're not bunds. It's a wall. They're not thick. So it's just been put up as a, and it must have been a condition to have that in the first place. They wouldn't have put it up on their own accord. That's my thinking.
If I could come back, I think you'll find that barrier has not been put up by this site. That was put up by Green Recycling, the other side, and that was a requirement of their condition on a previous application.
Because it was because that was an industrial business going on there.
Because of the nature of their business.
But the forklifts do make a noise. We stood there and listened to them. And I'm sure the residents over the river would hear it because it would go straight across the river.
Yeah.
Sorry, Madam Chair, can I just go back to the question of access by the road?
Yes.
That was one of my questions, which I didn't actually ask. It is the same owner who owns that present company that the path and the access is going across their own land to their own warehouse. Thank you. I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Can I go to Councillor Lagan?
Thank you, Chair. There's a couple of things I'm concerned about, and the debate has been very buoyant so far. I take what Councillor Nunn says about it being an industrial area, which it is, but I'm still concerned about the flood risk down there. And I noted that the remedial works that they'd say would be 1 in 100 years to reach that. I'm not sure whether it will be the case with the way that global warming is going, but you can only look on the statistics that are there. But at 5.3.2, to pick up on what Councillor Edwards has basically said, I don't suppose the environmental officer lives in Battle Rise, so he's not going to be hearing that noise. But it talks about intensify the use of the site will result in increased vehicle movements and noise generation, and also potential noise from plant installations. Something going from 7 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night would definitely have a detrimental impact on people's health and well-being, I feel. And I concur, and I feel that we should, it might be difficult to do, but if it takes, we have to defer the application to look at some form of acoustic screening, planting, hedging, trees, whatever's out there. Because it's difficult to do doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it, because we're talking about the impact on people's lives. And noise, as I well know, is a problem. So there's a few things here. Yes, the conditions may pass it through what the planning MPPF says and also the policies. But when you look at it from a moral perspective about getting a decent development that serves the community going forward, that keeps people safe, not only the people working there, but also the people who live around there, I have grave concerns about it as it stands. So I would very much support deferring and looking at what we can do to protect the people in Battle Rise and those areas, and also make it look a bit more I know we haven't got the reserve matters and appearance yet, but I think they'll be fundamental, because Downs Road is going to look over it. And people walk along the prom and they come here for the tourism. Yes, you've got an industrial area, but let's try and make it as nice as we can.
Pretty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beale.
The reason, yes, the sound attenuation is up there is because Greens were putting some new equipment in. That is why, because we've had so many complaints from people on Hall Road and all that.
Yep.
It really needed it.
Yep.
I can guarantee if they're working till 11 o'clock at night, our residents are going to be kicking off merry hell, because 11 o'clock at night, it's all quiet, sound travels at night. You know, you've got to do something with sound attenuation. I mean, the Environment Agency aren't stipulating because they're not living there.
No.
You know, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, as long as it's not on my doorstep. But we all know from Greens how noisy that is because of their equipment. And if this is an industrial estate, I can't imagine who's going to be working till 11 o'clock at night. There you go. But at the end of the day, you need to somehow condition that we have sound attenuation there, because it is literally right opposite all of those houses.
I'll come back to you.
Is there any way we can put that in?
I'll come back to you in a moment, because I'd like to hear from Councillor Shaughnessy and then Councillor Spenceley again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two things, if I may. I'm also concerned about this the noise problem, and I do know that the sound barriers. I'm not talking about a bund. I'm talking about a proper, tall, as Councillor Edwards said, they're about that wide.
Yeah, they are.
Proper sound barrier along there. It would be the way to go should this go ahead. That was the first thing I wanted to say. And the second thing is I realise that solar panels cannot be forced on anybody at the moment, but I would like to think that the idea of it, as has been mentioned already, has been minuted, please. So I would be grateful if we could check that, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Councillor Spenceley.
Hi, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to agree with what's being said about the sound barrier problem. And interestingly, I was speaking to an environmental health officer here today with regard to a problem we've got elsewhere with an industrial site. And they were saying that Heybridge is the most, difficult place in the district in terms of the industrial residential mix because of how it lies. And I think, it would be good to look at this as a possible condition for this, so that the residents know that we are, as a council, acting in their interests. And I wondered if a site visit would be possible for members. Obviously, I'm very new, so I'm not quite sure about that. But I think you could see it's easy to visualise the distance of Battle Rise from the development, which I think you can't necessarily see just by looking at the meters. It's looking at how close it is to that development with regard to the water in between, because I don't think the meters fully captures it. But that's just to back up what Councillor Edwards and Councillor Lagan have said. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Swain and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, on this 20-metre gap that they are now made. This presumably still remains the company's or the company's property right up to the edge of the sea wall. If it can't, or part of it can't be, so we say, conceded as public property for a footpath and cycleway, and I don't see why that should necessarily create a problem for the applicant if it's going to be left as we say, a blank area. But regardless of that, and this question of some noise barrier, it seems to me there is an opportunity here along this whole stretch to combine a decent, interesting cycleway, footpath with greenery, with environmental gain, with perhaps a physical barrier of some sort, a fence, an acoustic fence, and plantings to mask the noise that will inevitably go straight across the water to Heybridge. So I think, I don't know whether this is something which can be dealt with at a detailed stage, but I think we need to make some sort of what should we say, condition that about the nature of the footpath cycleway that and about using a green barrier for noise attenuation. The other thing is on flooding, given it's so low lying, is this particular development making additional provision for flood attenuation, and or is it relying upon the existing arrangements in this general area?
Through you, Chairman. Yeah, I hope I'll cover everything. So, so I'll start from the last then, because a few points have been raised about flood risk. No attenuation, new attenuation basin is proposed within the site. That's not a proposal. The 20-metre gap here of undeveloped land is for the Environment Agency to be able to access the site to do improvement works along the flood defences if required in the future, because it will be required in the future. So that's the purpose of the gap. Conditions in relation to sustainable drainage system has been imposed and has been requested by the lead local flood authority. It's condition 22. So all the details of how surface water will be managed on site will be secured, is secured through condition 22. In relation to the public footpath, there are plans within the North Quay development plan for a footpath to run along Heybridge Creek. This is outside the site. I don't know if you could see from the photographs maybe here. This land here, which is a little bit of green before the Heybridge Creek, this is on a lower ground. So this is all within the applicants. Whatever you see on this side, this is the application side. This is outside the site, so any footpath would be outside the application site. We've considered that for the purposes of this application, it would be more important to achieve a connection through the existing cycle and footway network in order for future employees being able to access the site with sustainable modes of transport. In relation to the noise barrier, I think if members are minded to defer the application for this to be discussed with the applicant, from my understanding, just planting is not enough as an acoustic barrier. You would need something more than just planting, because if it was only for planting, we could have dealt with that under the landscaping condition. But I don't think that's sufficient for noise attenuation purposes. You would need to consider, if this is something that we need to discuss with the applicant, the visual impact as well as the noise impact. Only one last thing. This side, we need to consider the position of the side. So the battle rise is here. If there is a screen along this side, you would see that the position of the application side is kind of like screened by the green recycling centre. So if there is an existing, I have not seen it myself, but if there is an existing acoustic barrier here, maybe that would be sufficient to cover any additional noise from the increased activity on site. But yes, again, if you consider that this condition would be necessary and you consider deferring the application, then that's something that could be discussed.
I'm going to, what am I going to do? You can come back, yes. I get
Yes.
track of who
From when I've been around there, there doesn't seem to be much of a scope for a path outside this area, and it would seem to make sense for this access road for environmental agency purposes to be used as a cycle and footway. As far as noise is concerned, and I don't see why an acoustic barrier can't be put up there and asked for. I think I might, that when we had an application for another sort of open warehouse development a bit further round, I think we did have a provision or a requirement for some acoustic barrier because it was directly opposite from Hall Road.
Yes, of course. Yeah, through you, Chairman. In order to impose a condition, we need to have in mind the 6 tests. We need to consider that this is a site that is already used for industrial purposes, is used as an open storage. So, as you already know, there are 6 tests for the conditions. One of them is to be reasonable and necessary. So, somehow we need to justify that there is a need for an acoustic barrier on the site. I mean, considering the existing use of the site, I'm not quite sure whether that could be reasonable to be asked, but again, we could talk about this. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to come to Councillor Beale, then, no, I'm actually going to go to Councillor Hurd, who hasn't spoken as yet, then I'll come back to you if that's okay. So only because Councillor Hurd hasn't spoken.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just on page 21 at the moment, 5.44. It's just really a question. The car parking spaces, they're providing 107 parking spaces, and it is it's an old itch of mine. Presumably, these are going to be the larger parking spaces on here rather than the smaller ones.
They're 2.9 by 5.5. Yes, they're 2.9 by 5.5.
And those are the large ones as they've got
yes.
down there. Okay,
Yes,
that's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Beale, then Councillor Lagg, and I'm going to finish with Councillor Edward. Oh, I will finish with my Vice Chairman. Go ahead.
Any obligation to basically give us any community benefits, as in further round, not far from where Greens is, there's a path comes across the creek there from Hall Road. It comes towards that state. Now I'm thinking, as a community asset, if we could extend that path instead of it going across into Bates Road or whatever it is, continue along the sea walk there, and then it could actually join up with the shopping centre, which means you wouldn't have to go down the Causeway.
I know.
You
I think a site visit would be useful.
It would basically be joining up with the Bates Road path that goes down, comes round
I think we
to
have
the
to be
back of
careful what we
Aldi or
do.
something like that. Is that something that we could ask for?
Yes. Yes.
And then also, I don't know if you've seen it lately, down at Mill Beach, we talk about sound attenuation, I don't know if you've all seen it. They've got like the alternate slats,
Yeah.
so you can still get the wind and that through it, but it does protect sound-wise. Something like that would be probably more visually
Attractive.
better.
Yeah.
Either that, if you do go stick a red metal one up, stick a fancy up there.
Thank you for that. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me come back.
Yeah.
I'm picking up what Anna said. I don't think we're measuring eggs with eggs, and you're a professional officer, and I'm just a nobody. But it is I can't see how it would be unreasonable, because the land is not being used for the purpose of which the applicant wants to use it for, i.e. enclosed warehousing, offices, etc., running machinery that they don't run now, albeit so there's other things. So I think it's really quite fair and reasonable to ask them to look at some sort of sound attenuation methodology for that area, because I think it's really, really important that is installed in some form, and because it is going to be running a long time and it is going to be loud. You know, I work in an industrial area, and the noise is produced a lot, and you've got to try and protect people's quality of life. So I propose that we defer this application until conversations. I don't know the terminology, Mr. Johnson, but defer it until we can actually find. Is it? I like that. Thank you. Defer it until we come up with the sound attenuation.
Okay. Can we just hold that one there, because I'll come back to you. I just wanted to go to Councillor Shaughnessy and then finish with Councillor Edwards, and then I'm going to come back to you, Councillor Lagan.
Chair, did I get an answer to my question?
I'm not. Oh, your banks? No. Perhaps the Banksy threw me. The pathway, using that as a pathway. I think yes.
And then if it
I
is,
think that's going to be part of the.
community asset all the way round to join the shopping centre instead of going down the Causeway, and also that slightly fencing would basically give us the sound attenuation. If it was like 6 foot high,
So it's,
Mr. Johnson.
is that something we can condition?
through you, Chair.
Yes.
It isn't something
Your
we could
mic's
just,
not on.
yeah, through you, Chair.
Yeah.
It isn't something we could condition just like that. I think that would need to be explored, Anna. I mean, and then again, if we're looking at a contribution, if it's outside of the site, there'd have to be justification for that. There'd have to be, normally these are things which are secured through the local plan and any, ancillary documents that we do have, where it can give us the justification for something which fits in with a sort of wider plan. I'm not sure if that's something that we've looked into necessarily, as we probably didn't feel that this application triggered that, but that I'll have to defer to my colleague, Anna.
Thank you, through you, Chairman. So yeah, given that this is outside the application side, it should be, if we're looking for a contribution, it should be a planning obligation. At the moment, we have secured the checking and monitoring of the travel plan, but to have a contribution towards the provision of a footpath, it would be a planning obligation. And again, there are 3 tests for planning obligations. They need to be relevant to the scale and size of the development. So if we ask for something, it would need to be relevant to the scale and size. It should be necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms. So it's whether we consider that otherwise the development would not be acceptable in planning terms. So that would be another consideration. And it should be reasonably related to the application side. So again, we have to have all in mind, and any planning obligation would need to meet these 3 tests. So again, we need to be careful as to, there was, no, not necessarily, no. Can I come back to one point that's been,
Yes, of course.
Yeah, thank you. About machinery, just to confirm that there is a condition, bear with me, 17, that requires if there is any external plant to be installed or machinery, they need to provide us with details, just to confirm that.
Okay. Councillor Shaughnessy.
Sorry, Chair.
That's
Councillor
okay.
Edwards did give way to me, for which I thank him. I would just like to give a word of caution due to something that has been happening since I was elected as a district councillor virtually on West Ward. It is essential that we get this right now. It's essential that we get the sound barrier that is needed to protect the people across the creek. Because on West Ward, due to a previous planning decision, and it doesn't affect any of the people here on the front bench this evening, which was a few years ago, Councillor Hurd and I have got a huge noise problem due to a bad planning decision for some people that have really badly affected by motorbikes from the I can't remember the name of the motorbikes now over the way, and I think the houses were overlooked initially because they are behind foliage there. So it's a dreadful problem at the moment to get things sorted out and reversed. It's really almost impossible to get planning decisions reversed, unfortunately. So just a word of warning, this has to be got right from the beginning. Otherwise, we're going to have a similar problem again as Councillor Hurd and I have on West Ward. Thank you, Chair.
I'm going to come to you in just a moment. Councillor Stilts.
Yeah, it's just a very quick question. Is there an S106 on this?
Only for...
Through you, Chairman, it has not been signed yet, but yes, there is an agreement from the applicant to contribute towards a travel plan, taking and monitoring of a travel plan.
So could the idea that Councillor Beale had be put into that S106 agreement?
If we consider that this meets the 3 tests, that's the only way it can be secured.
Councillor Edwards, then I want to come back to Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for letting me come back. I just got 3 little questions. There was...
Go home tonight.
Sorry.
I know this is a major application, which is why I'm being really quite,
There's been mention of this acoustic barrier outside of the development. I don't understand that. It has to be inside the development, not outside. It's where the acoustic barriers are already for the warehouses are already there. They're inside the development, not outside. But that aside, can you please just go back to the slide, the view of the fencing? That one. Sorry, the other one. No, I got the wrong one. Just there, you were talking about putting in a footpath. Well, PROW 45 is there. We walked it today. So it goes from behind that site to across to Battle Rise. So, and that's PROW 45. But it stops further up. So that comes to my second question, because you want to join it up with the pathway by the side of Audi.
Yeah.
Isn't that pathway the property of Audi?
No.
So how will that development, another development, get involved with a repairing a pathway that belongs to someone else? Thank you.
Through you, Chairman. Yeah, sorry. First point. I don't think that it was mentioned that an acoustic barrier would be outside the site. If it's been decided by committee and agreed that an acoustic barrier will be installed, that could be within the site. That could be secured by condition. It doesn't need to be a contribution. About the this part, yes, this is, as far as I'm aware, is owned by Aldi. It was before part of Aquila site, but it's been sold off, as far as I'm aware. But what we are asking here, as part of the Grampian condition, is not for them to reinstate that. This will be part of an enforcement case, because there was a condition for this path to be done under certain standards. So that would be dealt with separately under an enforcement case. What we are asking is that the developer connects this to the site. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Nunn, as board member, was there anything further you wanted to add at all?
No, I think it's been a very thorough discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Lagan, you made an initial proposal.
I did.
There were, just so that everybody's aware, there are two bits I feel that we need to consider. One is deferring this application, which I think you were going to put, but also the possibility of a site visit. Councillor Lagan, would you like to?
Well, thank you, Chair.
that
Thank you for
forward
letting me
for
come
us.
back. And I agree with Councillor Mallett. It's a very deep and careful debate. And I think listening, especially what Councillor Shaughnessy has said, is we've got to nail this. I still maintain the proposal that I raised earlier on about deferring the application currently, so that we can look at what noise barriers options are available to this, and look at how we could condition those.
Do we have a seconder for that proposal? Yeah, we have lots.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
Need a bit more information.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Councillor Beale. That's fine. Thank you.
But I'm open to a site visit, but I know the area really well, so I'm not, I don't need to see it.
Okay. Does anybody else want to second a site visit? Yeah, I have a seconder for organising a site visit. It's Councillor Shaughnessy. Thank you very much. All in favour of both of those? Abstaining or against? Of the site? No, the deferring. Okay, deferring is everybody, and the site visit. 3 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
If I may, we know from previous experience.
That's fine. Yeah.
From previous experience in organising a site visit, that you can end up with a very few people actually determining because people aren't available all the way through. So I mean, there is that as a caution, and I wouldn't have thought it should be necessary in this case.
Well, it's been agreed that we will have a site visit 7 to 3. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, and myself 8. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
So, yeah, through you, Chair. So we're agreeing to defer
Yep.
for a site visit, but specifically for the purpose of
The noise bund
to explore
and the noise
the
bund
potential noise issues
with and in conjunction with the footpath.
with the footpath,
Yeah.
Sound barrier.
Yeah, those two
Right,
elements. Those two elements.
Right, just so we're quite clear.
Are we up?
I just, it would also cover up the EA to, that would also act, double up to allow the EA to maintain.
Yep, with their 20.5 metre. Yeah, absolutely.
So we need to know sound attenuation. We need to know whether they'd be prepared
The footpath.
to link that
Two elements.
path up.
Is that
Because
sufficient?
they are extending it after that blue line on the left hand side. They're coming down to that little point. There's not that much then to do.
No. Okay, thank you. Thank you, members.
Could I just stress barrier rather than bund? Thank you, Chair.
Barrier. Barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sound attenuation barrier.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move on to item 6, which is application 22000434 House, Plum Tree House, Mundon Road, Maldon. Something's flashing at me. Which is East Ward, Councillor Swain's ward. The proposal is for a single-storey front, side and rear extensions with additional dormers to the front and rear roof slopes, as well as a new porch and changing of windows and doors. This has come to committee as a result of a call-in by Councillor Swain on the grounds of policy D1. The officer presenting is Jade Ellis. Miss Ellis, would you like to present your report?
Sorry, Chair, it's actually South Ward. It's not an East Ward property.
I beg your pardon.
Thank you. But it was called in by an East Ward member.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The application is for a single-storey front, side and rear extension with dormers to the front and rear roof slope. The application is also for a new porch and changes in fenestration. this application is a resubmission of the application 21/01100/house, which was previously refused on the harm to the character and appearance and would be an unneighbourly form of development due to the side extension. They have sought to overcome the reasons for refusal by reducing the roof height by 1.6 metres on the front extension. The roof lights have now been removed on the front roof slope. The front extension has been reduced in depth by 0.8 metres. The lean-to roof on the side extension would be 0.6 metres higher than on the previous application. Dormers have been added. There'd be French doors have been inserted on the rear elevation to replace the previous proposed full height window, which you'll see in the previous in another slide. And the French doors have been inserted on the side to replace previous proposed patio doors. Here's the proposed site plan. The hashed areas are where the extensions are being proposed. Here are the existing floor plans. Here are the proposed floor plans. So the red bubbles is the fenestration changes, French doors. There'll be French doors instead of full windows and patio doors. Here are the proposed second floor plans. Second floor plans. Existing elevations. The proposed front and side elevations, with the outline is showing where the existing garage is currently. Proposed rear and side elevations. So the change of fenestration from window to French doors on the top elevation, and the bottom one is showing the fenestration from the patios to French doors. Here are site photos on the rear elevation facing the north. Site photos of rear elevation from the south and the rear garden. Rear elevation facing north, and then the side where the proposed side extension is to be situated. And then the front towards the front, street scene, facing the existing garage, and then the north side and the garage again. And then photos of the entrance site in the site and out of the site. And then the street scene looking to the south, facing what's opposite the site and looking to the north. The application is up for refusal as it is considered the amendments made with the current application have not overcome the previous reasons for refusal. Therefore, the proposed extension to the front by reason of its position, height and depth would result in an overly dominant addition. It is also considered the dormers by reason of its design would result in harm to the character and appearance of the existing dwelling and locality. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members. Councillor Swain.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, there obviously have been discussions between the applicant and officers, which, according to the officers, hasn't resulted in a satisfactory application from their point of view. But this has happened 2 or 3 times, and the reason that I referred it or called it in was because of the nature of the reasons given for refusal in relation to this particular location. As Councillor Lagan observes, technically it's in South Ward, but it's directly opposite. It's surrounded by fields, and on the other side you have the whole string of bungalow-type houses down Mundon Road. I find it difficult to apply some of these terms. We all use them about incongruity and impact and neighbourliness and this sort of thing. We've used those when we've made recommendations at town and parish level. But in this instance, I wanted to, what should we say, ask the officers really to go into greater depth as to why they find this particular one to affect the character of the area and the street scene, and why it is incongruous in any way, given its actual position. These matters are dealt with under policy D1, which concerns design. But when you read D1, it's really geared to talking about new developments, and in fact new significant developments really, and it's quite difficult to actually relate the terms of D1 to such an application as this. In fact, in one of them seems to be particularly relevant, about number 10, about making better use of space, would actually seem to favour this more intensive use of the space. I haven't called it in with a view to, what should we say, trying to reverse the officer's decision, but I thought it would be useful for members for all future instances if we could have some clear idea of how they apply some of these arguments, which essentially come down to rather subjective judgment.
Miss Ellis. Oh, sorry. Michael. Mr. Johnson.
Through you, Chair. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Councillor Swain. There is, it's always argued that design policies are subjective, yeah? But that subjectiveness is based on an accepted set of criteria. That criteria being, in particular, the context within which the development lies, yeah? This isn't an isolated dwelling. It sits within a street scene, although it is on the other side. It's in a particularly oddly shaped plot, if you want to put it that way, but it is still part of the street scene. It is a conventionally designed house, and our starting point with any new development, especially when you're extending existing properties, is to start with what is the context of the street, yeah? How far are we differing from the original design, yeah? Matters of scale in terms of elements of the design. Is it proportional and related to the building as a whole? So, for example, if we look at the dormer windows, we've taken the view that given the conventions of dormers within that street, these two dormers are considered to be oversized and out of character with the roof as a whole. We're not saying that they can't be dormers, because dormers are a convention within the street. What we're concerned about with that is the scale of the dormers. So that's the view that we take of that. Others may see things differently, but that's how we take a view. We look to try and maintain a level of consistency within the street. Otherwise, it would effectively be a free-for-all, and we'd be back to those days when individuals can almost design what they want. Then you'd have to question: is there a need for planning designs in that sense? In terms of the front elevation, the applicant has sought to address some of the issues. They've reduced the height and they've set it back by 0.8 of a metre. In the council's view, having an extension on the front of the building in that way, again looking at the conventions of development within the street, we feel that it is out of character. It is, I mean, if, for example, front extensions, extending beyond existing properties in that way was a feature of the street, then we can consider some variation of that. We're more likely to be amenable to something of a particular scale, as long as we felt, again, it was proportional, yeah? Proportional in terms of its ridge height. That was one of the reasons why the ridge height was reduced by 1 metre, because effectively, previously, you had more or less a 2-storey extension at the front. That's not typical convention in a dwelling like this. So again, that's the view we've taken. We just don't feel, and which is articulated in the report, that it's actually gone far enough. So that's the view that we've taken towards this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Would you like to come back?
First of all, I don't think the building has got much character inherently. It is a bit ramshackle anyway, as far as I can see. The other point is, I take it officers haven't actually counselled against having dormer windows in the second floor, which I mean, I assume they haven't actually said that it's a bad idea to have dormer windows in this particular.
No, we haven't said that.
Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. Personal taste is personal taste, isn't it? When I looked at this, obviously, because I know the property well, as you go out of Maldon, it's on the right-hand side as you go down Mundon Road. And there's two properties there. There's this one and there's another one on the other side. They're very different to what the actual other side of the street is. Although one of the bungalows at the very bottom of the south has been completely renovated and doesn't look like what the house used to look like. It's just different, you know. And when I looked at this, I'm thinking it's a house on a rather large block that has quite a main road, Mundon Road, going through it, that's sort of set back on its own. And this, to me, actually sort of balances it up a little bit, you know. And I think the applicants have gone and looked at, you know, taken the advice from the architects and yourselves and done some changes that they're here before us today. And it is a subjective nature. But I think that when you look at that road, because of the country nature of the road as you go down on the right hand side and the difference, I don't know whether those arguments about, you know, the street scene imposing and changing it radically would be that radical. House in Fanbridge Road, built in Mr. Capon's house, radical, absolutely, when it was done in, must have been the 60s, 70s. Yeah, and it's like, it sticks out like a sore thumb, and it adds something. It really does. So I don't see that this is something that is really dramatically different. It's a very big building. You know, the applicants want to make it and balance it up. And I'm actually in favour of the application. And credit should go to the applicants for taking the advice, because I think it would, yes, it will be big, but I don't think it would be overbearing and overburdening. If it was on the other side of the road, however, it would be a completely different story, because it wouldn't match the street scene. But that's how I look at it, and I'm minded to go against the recommendation to refuse. Thank you.
I'd like to go to Councillor Spenceley, then Councillor Stilts, and then Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, I'd agree with Councillor Lagan. Having visited the site today, it's just a completely different property from the rest of the street scene already. It's completely out of character with the rest of the street, and it stands on its own. It's hardly visible when you're driving through, to be perfectly honest, and I think even with the changes proposed, it's not going to make it hugely visible. But I agree that actually the drawings that we're seeing here, to my mind, actually would make it blend in better than it does now, because it's a really ugly house actually at the moment. I hope, yeah, probably not so.
Sorry,
No.
don't mind your house.
But what I'm trying to say is I would commend the applicant that this, to me, looks like an improvement in terms of the visual amenity. So I have to agree with Councillor Lagan.
Thank you. Councillor Stilts.
Yeah, just one question really. On page 48, 7.2, you've got a statutory consultee, which is the tree consultant. And we're talking about a cedar tree and a plum tree. And then in 5.71, you talk about this tree, but I don't see any conditions for this tree being put in.
No, there wouldn't be, because it was a refusal, of course. Sorry.
Coming back on that, can we put a condition in for the tree if we were mindful to pass it?
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. I think in the report it does say that if it were minded to be approved, then a condition of that nature
It does say exactly that.
should be applied.
It does.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Actually, Councillor Lagan has actually already mentioned the fact that it sits back. It does sit back a long way, and the houses on the other side of the road actually come up to the boundary pretty well of the pavement. I think this is the pavement along the front gardens. Whereas this house sits quite a way back, and the extensions on the front won't come up to the boundary. It comes halfway along, and you can't see them because of the trees. So I agree with Councillor Lagan and others. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a proposal from anywhere on the floor? Councillor Lagan. Go for it.
never really know how to phrase these things properly, but I propose that we do not accept the recommendation for refusal, but approve the plans that are submitted before us now.
Okay, we need to know the reasons.
Not to approve.
Mr. Johnson.
No, thanks, through you, Chair. I think I kind of know where Councillor Lagan is going. I suppose a justification would almost be the opposite of what the reason for refusal would.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Continue.
The proposal for would be the extension to the front together with the front dormer windows by raising the design height would benefit the area. It wouldn't be a dominant addition. It wouldn't result in demonstrable harm to the character, and is in line with the existing dwelling and locality, and is in line with policies D1 and H4 of the MDLP. Full stop.
Correct.
Okay.
Could I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Shaughnessy. Councillor Stilts.
Madam Chair, can we also put a proposal in that there is a condition on the tree worker, please?
And then obviously there'll be the standard conditions that will go. There's nothing else that we need to consider? No? Okay. Yes, that will be included as a condition. What? Can that be seconded? Councillor Shaughnessy, thank you. Okay. All in favour? Okay, well, no, we'll do the application first to approve. Those in favour of approval. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And those against? 1 against. Abstentions? And 1 abstention. Those in favour of the additional condition regarding the trees? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Thank you very much. We'll now move on. Do we have Miss Matthews? I hope so. We'll move on to item 7. Application 20-00856, the diversion of public footpath number 14, Hazley, and public footpath 41, Maldon. Is this in South Ward? It's in West Ward. Okay, I've got West Ward. This is Councillor Shaughnessy and Hurd. The proposal is to make the diversion permanent, and if no relevant objections are received, to confirm those diversion orders by Maldon District Council as the competent authority under section 257 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. This has come to committee as the application is not delegated to officers to decide. Miss Matthews, could you present your report? There she is.
Yes, hopefully I've got a little assistant there who can
Yeah, excellent, thank you.
Which I can't see, so
She's blind.
yeah. Okay, so this is an application to divert part of a footpath and the whole of a second footpath, which currently cross the western parcel of the which forms part of the South Maldon Garden suburb. So I think on your screen there should be a plan showing the sections or arrows towards the section of footpath that need to be moved. And if you scroll to the next screen, it will show you the outline plan permission, extent of the outline plan permission, where this and have included. It's not completely accurate, but an idea of where the existing footpath goes. So it basically goes right through the middle of the development. And the third slide, I think, it shows you the layout for phase 2 of the western parcel, which is under construction. and I didn't quite manage to overlay the two, but the footpath does go right through the middle of that. So planning permission has already been granted for residential development over the footpath, but this is a separate additional process that the developer needs to go through to formally divert and close the existing stretches of footpath. So the diversion route is to go through their application site, their land, so along the edge in north-south direction, and then following the southern boundary of the outline planning permission. So this process is administered by Essex County Council Highways on our behalf, and they have carried out the first part of their process. So the next stage is for the district council to make the order, following which there will be a statutory period of consultation, and then if any objections are received, then they will need to be considered before the council decides whether to confirm the order or not. So it's so that's where we are in the process. But there is this is something that was always expected to happen and needed to happen, and it's taken a bit longer than expected to come through, because I think there were some land ownership issues, but they have now been resolved. And yeah, so that's the proposal for members to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. I've just got one question, which was about the Ramblers representations. Are you able to give us any information on that? What their representations actually were?
I don't know exactly what they said. So the process that's being carried out so far is an informal consultation process with the county council on our behalf, just to see whether there are likely to be any objections received. I can only assume that because the footpath diversion process has now moved to this stage, that any issues or concerns that were raised were not insurmountable, or there weren't any issues that would prevent the order being confirmed at the local level. Yeah, but
Thank you.
We'll have an opportunity to comment further through the formal statutory consultation process, which would be the next stage if the diversion order was made by the district council.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to go to Councillor Nunn, and then Councillor Edwards, and then Councillor Swain.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, it sounds to me like this is something of a fait accompli, and I'm really disappointed by that, because footpaths are a really important part of our landscape heritage, and some of them have been there for centuries. And I'm being told, but in this presentation, that the reason it needs to be redirected is because the development's going to build on top of it. Well, there are other developments that have occurred in Maldon in the past and recently that have actually incorporated the original line of the footpath. And I know it sounds a bit contradictory with a modern development, but at least the integrity of the footpath has been kept. So I'm really disappointed by this, but it sounds to me like we're not going to really get very far if we put forward a proposal to object to this.
Thank you. I don't disagree with you, actually. I think you're absolutely spot on. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's not a question, I haven't got a question regarding the footpath itself, per se, but rather, I was under the impression that Essex County Council manage public rights of way. Are we being asked as a consultee, or do we decide something that actually is managed by Essex County Council? I'm not quite sure. If you could clarify that point for me, please.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson. I knew this would come up.
Through you, Chair. I think first I'll say I'm no expert in this, but my understanding is the public right of way is exercised through the Town and Country Planning Act. So on that basis, it is within our remit to in a way sort of be the custodians of the process, hence our involvement. Essex County Councils effectively act as I don't know, our operators in terms of how the process works in itself. But at all the various stages, it still has to come through the local authority, especially in terms of the final ratification. And I think, as Catherine pointed out, there are several stages to this. There are 4 stages. You've got what they call the informal stage. That's the stage in which the significant consultations had been carried out with all the interested parties, including the parish council. So I'm not sure if any of yourselves are aware of that process having been carried out through the parish council. All the amenity groups, Ramblers Society and all those sorts of people would have been consulted and given the opportunity to make their representations. Those would have been taken on board, and as Catherine mentioned, had there been any adverse elements to that, we either probably wouldn't get to this stage, or it would take us much longer to get to this stage. This is a made order stage. This doesn't, and again, it's an administrative process. This does not say that the PROW can be built or that there's an agreement to an alternative route. It's just part of the process which initiates the 3rd stage, which is a confirmed stage. But at each stages, there are consultations again with those interested persons. And then the 4th stage is what they call the certification stage. But even then, that goes through checks and balances. So that's sort of how the process is. So the fact that we agree this stage, which then moves it on to the next stage in itself, does not give the final say to the PROW or any alternative route. Thank you, Chair.
Mr Johnson, coming back to what Councillor Nunn said, so would some of what he was saying be a relevant objection that we could actually levy against this and actually reject this application? Because we've either got to approve it or we've got to reject it.
Through to you, Chair. I'm not quite sure what if Councillor Nunn had given an objection. I think I understood Councillor Nunn was unhappy with the process because it almost seems like there's a fait accompli, given the fact that development had been approved, the land parcels had already been set, the existing PROWs goes through the site, as Catherine mentioned, and there was almost no alternative, hence the fait accompli comment, if I'm interpreting Councillor Nunn correctly.
Without putting words into,
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, without putting words into Councillor Nunn's mouth, I get the impression that rather than moving this PROW, that it is actually diverted around the houses and basically follows almost the existing path that it does, or something along those sort of lines.
I was expressing disappointment,
yeah,
because it's an important part of the landscape heritage. The problem I've got with this is that if there have been other consultees, we don't know what they've said. It's not in the report. There is no comment from conservation, from archaeology, from the Ramblers Association, as you've said. I don't know who's been consulted over this. And so I find that it's not a complete report, really.
Thank you. I'm going to continue round, if I may. Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Swain. Oh, I beg your pardon. Councillor Swain. Councillor Swain.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, as far as the landscape is concerned, this is sort of being obliterated by the development of this part of the garden suburb. I see no value in trying to follow a footpath route through a housing estate. I assume this diverted path would be entirely within the estate, so to speak, and the fringe of it. And perhaps Ms Matthews can confirm that it doesn't, that it is all within the curtilage, we say, of what is it, countryside properties as well. And doesn't depend upon the private access on the west side. And is it actually intended to be part of a green belt round the fringe of the estate, which seems to me an improvement?
Thank you. I'm not sure. Miss Matthews?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so can you hear me, guys? I froze for a second. Yeah, so the diversion route would be through a landscape belt which is proposed along the southern boundary of the site. And if anyone, my assistant, can perhaps bring up the reserve method layout for phase 2, you can see along the southern boundary landscape belt with a footpath through it, and so that would be the new route of the footpath. So it would still be so it would be along the edge of the development and right next to the fields and the rural area countryside beyond the garden suburb. That's what the diverting route or the proposed alternative route is going to be. So we've got the details of phase 2, then there'll be phase 3, which is yet to be submitted as a reserve matter application. But the permission for phase 2 has already been granted without the developer being unaware of any need to try to incorporate the footpath, the existing route of the footpath within their development. So from a practical point of view, I think that opportunity has been lost. I suppose the outline permission goes back to 2014, quite a long time ago. So at that time, maybe members' views were different. Perhaps worth pointing out that there was a similar level of comparable footpath diversion that was required for the eastern parcel. So there was a footpath that went right across, diagonally across the field that is now being built on, and so that was diverted just around the edge of the field. A similar scenario to this, and that was that order was made and confirmed by the local planning authority and district council, and that issue about trying to retain it within the development was not an issue that was raised at that time. Just for information. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yes, it's whether this is actually within a green fringe to the estate, and as a further point, or would it be actually fenced off from the development?
No.
There's certainly no proposals to fence it off. No, so the footpath and the landscape strip along the boundary would form part and parcel of the residential development, and sort of along the southern boundary. Big from memory, I think that there would be lower scale buildings there, so the graduated blending into the countryside. So you have the lower scale dwellings, and then you'd have the landscape strip with the public right of way. That's what's proposed to the middle of it, and then beyond that there would be the countryside and fields beyond. Sorry, bells. It's 8 o'clock. Everybody aware. Yeah, and to confirm that land is all within the ownership of the developer, and the diverted route is all within their land ownership.
Does that answer your query? Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Beale and then Councillor Shaughnessy.
Can I just confirm with the officer that this redirected path is going to be interconnected with that estate, and it's not just a standalone, it is actually going to be connected to other paths that whatever period
Connection to the
distance, I don't know, I mean, it's a lot of roads
Yes, no,
to
no.
get to the outside. It's
Yes,
going to be
because
connected to existing, paths that are going to be built onto the estate anyway.
Miss Matthews.
Through Chairman, I think the other member asked a similar question. There are no proposals for fencing or any physical barrier between the houses and this landscape strip and the footpath within it. So it would be open for residents of the garden suburb to walk straight onto the public right of way, and that's one of the whole aims of the garden suburb is connectivity and trying to encourage people to walk and sort of the recreational side of living in the suburb.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Johnson.
So through you, Chair, and just to draw members' attention to 3.3 of the report, where it states that condition 21 of the outline planning permission requires the following, and that is for prior to any occupational development, details of any public footpath diversion within the relevant parcel lease or where shall be submitted to and approved by local planning authority, etc., etc., and then it states the relevant act. The fact that there is that condition ties it in with the development. It ties it in with the responsibilities of the developer in providing and maintaining that footpath. The details for that application, as it then goes on to say in 3.4, were submitted in 2020. So that just shows how long this process has been going through, how thorough this process is in ensuring that the footpath, all the relevant persons are notified and fully aware of its implications. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Is that okay? Thank you. Councillor Shaughnessy, then Councillor Lagan and Councillor Hurd. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I totally agree with Councillor Nunn's views on this. I mean, it is a fait accompli. I really don't know why we have got it before us tonight. And why have we this one and not the previous one mentioned by Ms Matthews on phase one? There does seem to be really an inconsistency there. And also, there are one or two members on town planning here, but I am pretty sure that this issue did not come to Maldon Town Council as a consultee.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
Oh, it's a comment, really, more than no, it's not a comment. It's a moan. I think that we're so easy just to give stuff away. You know, it might be a footpath and we might be able to redirect it, but it might be an important thoroughfare. It might have some memories for people who used to walk down there with a dog or a family member or whatever who like to go through that area. So I'd like to see a bit like the old bridleways, you know, us to be, and officers to be a bit more detailed in the will of the members to go, you know, look, what are the opportunities? Is there an opportunity to work with a developer to try and maybe keep some of these things rather than losing them? Because we've got these massive estates going up all around the area. Yeah, if you're going to do that, enhance it and keep it, and as Councillor May says, add to it. Put the south one in, but say to the developers, all right, let's see if we can do a plan. It's not hard and complicated, and it is quite nice, you know, to be able to walk through some of those areas. Because I know the area like the back of my hand, because I used to play down there as a kid. So I can't do it now because I get run over. But yeah, I just feel we just give stuff away too easy. You know, and the small stuff is really important to people. So yeah, it's a moan and a whinge, but not particularly anybody. And it's a done deal, races, and it has to happen. So
thank you, Councillor Hurd.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think that I mean, I speak as a ward member. We're not taking anything away from anybody. I mean, if I lived in any one of those houses, I wouldn't want somebody marching through my back door and through my garden, quite frankly. What we're talking about is a rediversion, and for those who want to walk, they can walk. If it was retained as it was, it would lose the views and it would lose the part that it had, because you wouldn't be able to get the view if you walked along there. You'd be looking into somebody's backyard. So I don't have a problem with this, and I'm pretty sure it did come to town, but it was for information only.
Thank you. Okay, members, I think we'll go to a vote. Councillor Swain.
Can I propose approval of the diversion?
Yes, you may. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Hurd. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have to say myself 5 because I feel quite strongly about that. So that's it is approved, although we're not very happy about it. Thank you very much for your time this evening. There are no other matters that are urgent that need to be dealt with. Thank you for your contributions. Good night.
Thank you, Chair.
It's particularly loud in your hand.
Nice, doesn't it? Sorry, someone said something to me. Hello. Sorry, I know, I suddenly ended that meeting. I thought there was nothing else to be done. It's really heavy. The thing went to it.